I love therapy, and in fact, I've been going to therapy since I was around 6 years old. Though I talk about therapy a lot and may interview some therapists on the show on occasion, nothing that is said in this podcast should be considered a replacement for therapy. If you are struggling, I urge you to please seek guidance from a therapist because you are absolutely worth it.
Hello, everyone. You are listening to Wine, Dine, and 69, a podcast about dating, relationships, sex, and self-love. I am your host, Rachel Dalton. I tried to do like a different inflection on that intro this week, and I just managed to confuse myself, even though I've said that phrase how many times at this point? So not doing that again. That didn't work for me. But first things first, if you are listening to this episode the day that it comes out or in the next few days after it comes out, please vote. Please do your civic duty. Go to the polls, vote early, do what you gotta do. Shit is getting fucking real. Dr. Oz is running in the state of Pennsylvania. Oh man, I think that it can't get worse. I think that things can't get more crazy, and then they do. I feel like we're living in the fucking Twilight Zone here. So please go vote, show up to the polls, and if you can help other people do the same, do that. Do whatever you can to get as many people to the polls as possible to vote legally, obviously. Anyway, before we get into the interview today, I wanted to share something that I have been doing some research on and discovering a lot about. A month or two ago, I was discussing sex with some friends of mine. Shocker, I know. And one of my friends mentioned to me that we were kind of talking about like the persona that we take on in like the bedroom with our partners. Because, you know, like when you're turned on and in that space, like you're not always yourself. You kind of sometimes can go into a different headspace and kind of change a little bit. So that's fun. But so my friend was telling me that she tends to get a little bit like bratty, kind of this general like bossing her partner around and kind of wanting him to give her sass back, that type of thing. So it kind of got me thinking about the sexual archetypes and like how I would identify. And I kind of realized that it kind of just depends where I'm at in my life and in the relationship. But in early stages, I think that I always have really liked the idea of being a femme fatale. And you know what? The reason I say that, I didn't give myself that label. A number of years back, a friend of mine mentioned to me, she was like, Rachel, like you are the definition of a femme fatale. And it's quite honestly maybe the nicest thing that anyone has ever said to me. But I've always kind of, I like that idea. I like the idea of, you know, one of my favorite historical beings is Anne Boleyn, and she's this person who used her feminine wiles to gain power at a time when women really didn't have much of any, and they had to get power in the only way that they could, and that kind of involved being smart, being sexy, and being smart. And I've always found that idea really interesting, and so I decided to kind of look into if this idea of sexual archetypes was an idea, and it is. So I did a little bit of research, and holy shit, you have to check out this podcast. I listened to it on YouTube, and so I'll of course put in the episode notes. Please listen to it and reach out to me and tell me what you think of it, because I think this is going to be like my new favorite thing to research and talk about. It is so cool. So it's this woman who I've heard of before, but I was not super familiar with her work. Her name is Amy Jo Goddard, and she runs a number of retreats for women. And one of the things that she does is to introduce them to different sexual archetypes. You know, we're all kind of familiar with this idea of like the the virgin, the whore, the mother, and in this episode, they kind of talk about this idea, the fact that for some reason, like when women become mothers, they're completely stripped of any sexuality by society, which is ridiculous because it took sex for them to become mothers. But I digress. So there are those three main ones, but then there are also these other ideas that we have. There's the femme fatale, which I already mentioned. There's the prude. There's the wild woman, which I kind of imagine is like the manic pixie dream girl, this woman who's like completely uninhibited and raw and natural, and the prude, obviously, we all kind of know what the prude is. And each of these archetypes have a negative or shadow side and a positive side to it. So, you have the damsel, you have the empowered submissive, you have the butch, you have the goddess. There's a number of, it's fascinating. And it's this idea of what your relationship to yourself is when you are being intimate and what your relationship to your partner is and which of these archetypes you embody in that moment. What are some other ones that came up? There was the victim. There's the healer. There was a bunch of really cool ones. And I mean, she even said that there's been a ton that have been switched in and out as time has gone on. So I definitely want to do a deeper dive into this because, the fact of the matter is no one is going to always be one, right? We're always going to be a mixture of a few and maybe different archetypes at different points in our lives. And, I've also been doing a lot of thinking about attachment styles lately. And I was like, ooh, does my sexual archetype kind of play into what my attachment style could possibly be at that point in my relationship? And then kind of demisexuality came into it because I was like, oh my gosh, like if I'm feeling emotionally connected to my partner, that can affect my attachment style, and my attachment style and feeling emotionally connected to my partner could affect my archetype. As you can tell, I've been thinking about this a lot. It's been incredible to be in my brain today as I've been running through all of this. So I can't wait to learn more about it and to dive more into Amy Jo Goddard's work. And so, please listen to that episode and let me know what you think. I would love to also learn if there is a male equivalent. I think that we very frequently, and this comes from the fact that the patriarchy has been in control socially for however long. But there is more of a focus on women and women embodying sexuality versus men. And I think we do need to think about the fact that like maybe men have sexual archetypes too. I want to learn more about that. So let's go on this journey together. I'm going to do some research, you do some research, and let's talk about it, because if you can't tell, I'm super stoked about this idea. So I wanted to share that. So I'll share again that YouTube video and Amy Jo Goddard's website in the episode notes. So I guess that's all I really wanted to share in the intro. I reminded you to vote, and we talked about sexual archetypes. Those are the big things. Today I talked to Roy Biancalana, and we discuss how to become relationship ready. Roy works with people in a kind of relationship boot camp, all about what can you do to be ready for the relationship. Just like I don't work out, so forgive me as I kind of like work through this analogy. But if you're preparing, I think he used a race as an analogy. If you're preparing for a race or a marathon of some kind, you have to train for it. You can't just show up and be ready to do the thing, right? So being in a relationship takes a lot of individual work. And we discussed that a lot. And what you can do to become relationship ready and to stay in good relationship health for you and for your partner, your future partner, your current partner, whatever the case may be. So everyone, I hope you're doing well. Life is weird, life is good, but I am sending everybody so much love. I hope that you're all hanging in there, thriving, whatever the kids are saying these days. But yeah, let me know what your sexual archetype is. I really, really want to know, and I really, really want to talk about it. Okay? Okay, cool. I'm going to cut to a quick commercial break, and then please enjoy my conversation with Roy Biancalana. And don't forget to vote.
Calling all citizens of Halcyon City. The newest generation of heroes are now painting the pages of Delinquent Comics, an actual play podcast in the game world of Masks, a new generation. Join our heroes as they struggle to build a team and save the city. Can Titan escape the shadow of his mentor burnout? Is Soul's overwhelming power too dangerous to control? Will Muse discover her past? And how does White Knight stomach all those strange snacks? Listen to Delinquent Comics to find out at allportsopen.com, Spotify, iTunes, or wherever podcasts are found. New issues become available to all citizens every other Monday.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back. I am super excited to introduce my guest for today, Roy Biancalana. Roy, how are you doing today? Tell us about how you're doing and why you're here.
Yeah, well, I'm doing wonderful.
Great.
And I'm here to talk about and to possibly assist people who are wanting to know how to attract a really healthy, sustainable, intimate relationship. That's pretty much what my whole coaching business is about.
I love that too. You're a guy. I interview so many women who are in this area. It's really refreshing to be able to talk to a man about this.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, how did you get started in this? What's your story? Where did this start?
Yeah, well, it's quite a story, and I will say at the top, this is never something that I set out to do, right? This was not a dream of mine. I've never wanted to be a coach per se. It sort of came up from behind me and grabbed me because of my experiences. So, I often joke with my clients and sometimes on podcasts like this that if people will simply do the opposite of everything that I've done in my love life, you'll probably be okay, right? I've made every mistake that you can possibly make. So I was married for 19 years, right? And that relationship just devolved into a functional and friendly co-parenting relationship.
Right.
But we lost our sexual chemistry. We lost the man-woman dynamic, and we just were going through the motions. I don't think my ex-wife really was enjoying it. I know I wasn't because I initiated a divorce.
Okay.
And that's when I made my first mistake. I didn't stop at that point and do any introspection. I didn't do any work on myself. I just rebounded immediately into another relationship, which of course was the dead opposite, right? Yep. It was all sex all the time. And at the time, Rachel, that was pretty nice for me because it had been so long.
Yeah. You were in 19 years with the same person.
Oh my Lord. Right. And so we were together for about 2.5 years. We got engaged, and 6 months before our wedding, she broke up with me. And that one destroyed me. I mean, I think I went through what I would call a year-long midlife crisis. I mean, I didn't sleep well. I had obsessive thinking, heart palpitations. I became a lousy father that year. My career suffered. I was a total mess. And so mistake number 2, I didn't stop at that point and do any work on myself or any reflecting, right? I was just in so much pain. Looking back, I'm kind of friendly toward myself for what I did because I didn't know any other way at that point in my life on how to deal with the pain that I was in other than to join about 4 different dating sites. And I just was going to find me a new woman to help me forget the last one. Right?
Yep.
And so I thought that I was emotionally available and that I was actually ready for something new, but I wasn't. Looking back, I think I was actually using some of these other women to help me forget about the last one. So you can imagine the amount of drama that I caused in my life and in the lives of these women that I interacted with because of how I was just trying to avoid the pain and survive and all that kind of stuff. So at that point, a friend of mine suggested that, Roy, maybe you should talk to someone. Right? And I sort of say that laughingly because when he did, I sort of laughed at him. I was like, why? Because Rachel, this is unbelievable to say out loud, but it really was the truth. And I think other people may be able to relate to this. At that point, I really did think that my love life was not the way I wanted it to be because I just hadn't met the right woman yet. In other words, I was blaming the women. It was all my ex-wife and all my ex-fiance and then all you crazy women online. It really never occurred to me that I was the common denominator in all of these pictures and that I might have something to do with it. I have to admit that my ego was that big. Well, it's probably still pretty big, but it was really big back then. And I just really thought that, it was them, right? And it never occurred to me. And so when my friend suggested I work with a coach, I didn't even understand, like, why would I want to do that? I mean, but I did it. And I think the only reason I did is because I was in so much pain. Yeah. And I have been a person who's been interested in personal growth, even though I didn't apply it to my love life much.
I think that's pretty common with males, actually. Sorry to interrupt.
Yes. I did hire a coach mostly out of frustration and out of the pain that I was in. And I've tried everything else, And so I think one of the first conversations my coach ever had with me, she said, listen, Roy, I don't want to hear about the women. I don't want to hear about your ex-wife was this or that, or your ex-fiance and all these other women. I don't want to hear about it. I want to know if you'd be willing to hold a mirror up in front of your face and take a look at yourself, right? And for whatever reason, I was. And what I discovered, Rachel, was that it really was my fault. Well, I shouldn't say my fault, but it really was true that I had some blind spots and I had what I call relationship personas and I had some limiting beliefs and I had some of my childhood mommy issues, that there was stuff that I was doing that was attracting these women and creating the dynamics that I was going through.
Absolutely.
And, right. So I woke up, like had these aha moments. Well, no wonder why your love life is the way it is. Look at the way you're thinking. Look at your mommy issues. Look at this and that. Right. And so once I was able to identify what I was doing to attract the nightmares that I was in, well, then I was able to work on those things. And so my work with my coach was so transformative for me because not long after working with her, well, it might have been a year and a half, I was able to meet and date and fall in love with, and I've been married to the same woman now we're just about 15 years.
Wow.
And we have a great relationship. And it's really because of my work with my coach. So when I came out of this, I was like, I just want to do for other people what my coach just did for me. Like, I learned so many things. I felt like Lucy in that book, The Chronicles of Narnia, right? Where she goes in the wardrobe closet, and she discovers Narnia. And then it's so amazing. She goes back out to tell her friends what she found. I sort of feel like that. I was like, the things that I discovered with my coach and the processes she took me through and the questions that she invited me to answer and to think about, they changed my life and the trajectory of my love life so deeply that, now I've got a love life that a lot of people would die for. And so I want to be a coach and maybe help some people who have hit the end of their rope and who might be willing to look in the mirror instead of just telling me that their love life sucks because of the men or the women or
Mm-hmm.
whatever else. And if they're willing to look at themselves and, follow the same process, because I tell people that what's happened for me, I didn't get lucky. The gods didn't smile on me, right? The stars didn't align. I followed a certain path and I asked certain questions and I looked at certain places in my soul that are transferable. And I just tell people, if you do the same things I did, you can have the same results I got, because it's
Right.
all about the process. And so that's a long way of telling you why I'm a coach, is I just want to help people the way my coach helped me.
That is such a cool story. And I have some names for you. They probably don't think that they need help, but I'm just going to pass them on to you. Anyway, no, that's incredible. And so, like, what kind of people come to you? What kind of situations are people in? Do people come to you when they're already married and considering separating? Is it people who are primarily single? Like, what's your clientele like, and what kind of situations?
It's primarily people who are single and don't want to be, right? So occasionally somebody is in a relationship and they've hit a wall and stuff like that. So I do work with couples and I do work with people that are in relationships. I just don't, in my marketing efforts, you could say, I don't push toward that.
Right.
I sort of talk about people who, have been hurt. They've been divorced. They've been through some breakups. They don't know what the hell is wrong and why it's not working out, or like, why am I attracting these same kinds of people or the same kinds of dynamics? Like, one of the things that a lot of my clients can relate to is something I call the relationship Groundhog Day syndrome. Okay. You remember that movie with Bill Murray where he keeps experiencing the same thing over and over again. Well, people are like, it's not the same partner, but why do I keep attracting basically the same partner? They're narcissistic, or they're emotionally unavailable, or they're broken down, or they've got wounds, or they're addicts, or whatever it is. I keep attracting the same type of partner, and we have the same type of problems and the same type of pain over and over and over again. And so people come to me when they are finding themselves stuck in a pattern, or they just don't understand why can't I make a relationship work with an intimate partner? Like,
the common
what the hell?
denominator.
Right. And so that leads into, if I can ask myself my own question, like, what is the biggest mistake that Roy finds with people when they want to have this kind of conversation?
Yeah, let's hear it.
Yeah. And the biggest mistake is that they spend too much time asking questions about, like, where do I go to meet someone? How do I approach them or get them to approach me? Or what do I say? Which online platform should I use? How do I write a profile? What pictures, right? So the biggest mistake,
Statistics don't matter, right?
Yeah, in their pursuit of intimacy is they think about, where do I find them, instead of turning the attention and say, what am I missing or unconsciously unaware of in my own life that is manifesting all of this, right? So the biggest mistake is where their attention is going. How do I find them? To looking in the mirror. So I use an illustration that I think is pretty fun. It brings this home, and maybe it's a metaphor. And so that is something like, imagine that the people listening to this want to really do well in a triathlon. Okay. They want to compete and do well in a triathlon. And imagine that I'm a former triathlon champion, the Ironman. I won the Ironman. Now I'm retired and I coach people on how to be successful. Okay. So somebody comes to me and says, Roy, can you coach me? You've done it. You know what you're doing. I want to be successful. Coach me. Okay, great. I'll coach you. And we sit down, and what the person starts asking me about is questions about race day. Like, how do you survive in the water? How do you transition from the water to the bike, and the bike to the marathon? And then, what do I eat? I'm out there for all day. How much do you eat? When do you eat? How much water? Where do I speed up? Where do I slow down? So they're asking me important questions, And they're valuable questions, but they're not asking me what they should be asking me about. They should be asking me, Roy, how do I get my butt in shape for this race? Right? Because you
Absolutely.
can have the greatest race strategy in the world, but if you hit that starting line and you're 50 pounds overweight, you aren't going to make it 100 yards in the water, right? You're
Right.
never going to get to the finish line if you're not in shape. That's the most important thing. Once you're in shape, okay, yeah, let's talk strategy. Great. But you got to be in shape to do that. And so this is what I tell people. Don't ask about the starting line, and the race day, about where to go and how to approach and the online stuff and all that. No, that ain't it. You should be asking me, how do I get my relationship butt in shape so that when I meet someone, I can go the distance? So my big question is, are we in good enough relationship shape so that whenever life seems to put us together with someone, are we ready for something real? Are we ready to connect in a meaningful way? And so a lot of my work, Rachel, is built around what I call the 7 most important relationship muscles, right? They're just 7 areas of our lives that I have found we need to have these areas, operating at a pretty high skill level if we want to connect with someone in a meaningful way. So I just use that fitness metaphor and
I
I
love
call them
that.
relationship muscles because, my newest book is called Relationship Bootcamp. Okay. It's hardcore training for life, love, and the pursuit of intimacy. And so I use the fitness metaphor to make the relationship conversation a little bit more understandable and maybe a little bit more interesting. So that's my big thing, is getting yourself in shape rather than asking me where to go, how to approach, what to do. And if you put your attention on your own relationship condition, then we can talk about where to go or how to write a profile. And, in fact, I met my wife, I went to a personal growth conference and I just sat down next to the prettiest girl in the room. And that's how I met her, right? There was no online thing. But here's the interesting thing. When I did that, I had just finished my work with my coach. And I found out later she had spent like 2.5 years working with a therapist. Even though my wife is a therapist, she was working with her own therapist.
Therapists
So
need therapy too.
Right. So when we met, we were both sort of in relationship shape and we were able to connect and make something flourish. Right. So that's what I preach. Man, it's not about them. It's not about where to find them. It's about you. It's about looking in the mirror and doing your own work, which the ego hates. My ego hated to be exposed for my mommy issues and my relationship blind spots and stuff. It's so easy to point the finger at the women.
It is.
So that's kind of what I stand for and what I try to get people to change their perspective to.
Yeah, I think that's so important. And I mean, so you married your first wife at what age?
I was 24.
24. Okay.
Mhm,
And you
and
married
so
your second wife at what age?
47.
Okay.
So we split up around, I was like 42 or 43. And then I had my ex-fiance in there for a couple of years.
Mm-hmm.
And then I was single for a little while. And then I met my wife in there. So I had about 5 years where I wasn't married. But I think
Right.
2.5 of those I was in a committed relationship.
Well, I guess I'm wondering about like the differences in age. So I'm in my early 30s and I started dating a couple months ago after a year-long break of dating. I didn't think about boys. I didn't see boys. I didn't want any boys because I wanted to have a year of
Good for
personal
you.
growth, right?
Yeah, I wish I had done. Yeah.
But because it was a 4-year relationship and I just was like, nope, I need to reset here. Time to reset. But I got back out there and it was so surprising to me how different it was dating in my 30s versus dating in my 20s.
Yeah.
It's like, I feel like when I was in my 20s, I got all of these lines like, oh, we don't need labels, or, oh, like I really am busy with work. Like I really need to focus on my career,
Mm-hmm.
or you're like the type of girl that I want to marry someday. I'll get a lot of that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And now that I'm in my 30s and jaded, it's like people are like ready to like commit and step
Right.
up. And
Right.
I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
Like it's, I
Well,
still, whenever
are
somebody like makes me dinner, I'm like,
right. Are you saying you're not ready to commit now that you're in your 30s and they are, or?
I don't think that's the case. I think it's just the case of being wary, not knowing.
Right.
Yeah,
Right.
just not knowing if it will last, not knowing if it's temporary. Like,
Yeah.
you know
Yeah.
what I mean?
Yeah. And I appreciate you mentioning the jaded term, because that we'll come back to that in a minute, but I will comment. I find in my experience, what you've experienced is, I think there's some validity to it, that in your 20s, people, they're just trying to find their way in the world a little bit, get my career going. I'm out of college. I'm just trying to a little bit. And so, yeah, I just want to have a good time. I'm not really interested necessarily in settling down. But once you get into your 30s, especially women, if they want to have children, then it begins to change. And you start to get men who are hopefully growing out of the frat boy stage, and there's
Right.
sorority girl and frat boy, meaning in the 20s, everybody's just kind of partying and not that serious about things. But then once you get to 30, it's like, okay, so maybe now I'm thinking about, the rest of my life and so forth. And so people get a little bit more serious about being ready for a real connection once they get a little bit older. So I'm not surprised you're having that experience, but you can come through all that with some bumps and bruises.
Sure.
You can be jaded, right? And so one of the muscles I describe in my work, one of the areas of our lives that we need to have in pretty good shape, is what I call our relationship to our past. Okay. It's one of the stickiest, ugliest, most difficult aspects of this kind of work, but it may be the most important, because it's just kind of what you described. I sort of make the joke, just to kind of keep things from getting too overly serious, that the only people in the world that don't have some baggage are the little babies in the maternity ward.
Yeah.
Okay. Everybody else has got some degree of bumps and bruises. We've been hurt, betrayed, lied to, ghosted, gaslighted. Some of us have come out of childhood with horrible trauma.
Yeah.
And it's that stuff, that baggage, that pain from the past that can really stand between you and the next person. It can make you a little guarded. It can make you jaded. It can make you a little suspicious. It can even begin to put a wall around your heart, right? Because there's an instinct that I don't want to get hurt.
Mm-hmm.
I don't want to get hurt again, right? And so you can put a wall around your heart, and the wall will keep you safe, but the wall will keep you single, because nobody can get in to hurt you, but nobody can get in to love you either, right? So this thing about our past, how do we let go of the past so that we can meet the next moment and the next person with an open, available heart?
Mm-hmm.
Like, in other words, how can I meet a new person as if you are the first person that I've ever interacted with, so that I'm not projecting, the last couple guys I was with or the last couple girls I was with, they did this and this and this. And so as I meet you, I'm already wondering, are you going to cheat on me? Are you going to be an asshole? Are you going to do this? And so these relationships turn into something I call like a menage a trois from hell. It's like it's me and you and my past,
Yep.
and the three of us are in this relationship together. And sometimes the four of us, because
I was going to say their past.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. So it's I don't know what a menage a trois for four people would be called. I don't know if that's just called a quad or I don't know what it's called, but you get my point, right? That my past is in between us. And so I'm not able to to see you for who you are. I'm seeing you through the things that have happened to me. And that projection can really sabotage a relationship because, good people can feel when they're sort of being held accountable for something that they know they didn't do. Right? So there's no shame in having a past. There's no shame in being jaded and, being guarded or having a wall. It's quite natural. It's just that we need to understand that as long as that stuff is there, it's going to keep me from connecting in the healthiest, deepest way. So I need to let go of my baggage. I need to figure out how can the past become merely something that happened rather than something that's happening.
Right.
Right. It's not alive in me. Yeah, it happened to me. Okay. They cheated and this happened, but it's not alive in me. Like it's still happening. Right. And now I'm going to change the way I interact with you or how quickly I let this relationship develop. Right. Because a lot of people that have been through hurt, they approach the relationship from the standpoint of here's where I start. I don't trust you.
Yeah,
you
that's
have
dangerous.
to prove it to me.
No.
Right? I want you to prove that you are someone that I can trust. And once you prove yourself to me, then I'll open my heart to you.
Which is completely unfair to the other person.
It is. And most good people, I try to make the joke again to keep this light. I haven't met anybody who brings a sledgehammer to a date. I mean, I'm not here to break down your walls, sweetheart. You know what I mean? So when they feel that I'm not being trusted and there's not an availability here, like we can't just dance, right? We can't play because you're holding yourself back or you're trying to figure me out or interrogate me or something in some way. It's just a turnoff. And I'm liable to go to that woman over there who's got her arms wide open because her attitude is that I trust you. Like I'm wide open. I'm really available. Let's dance. Let's play. But the minute you show me that I shouldn't trust you, I'm going to kick you in the nuts and send you down the road.
Right.
Metaphorically speaking. Right.
Or not.
Right. That's a big difference in your energy. I'm starting from I don't trust you. You got to prove yourself to I'm wide open to you until you show me that I shouldn't be. Right. And one energy is very attractive. The other one is not. And yet, when we have a past alive in us, that's what happens. So we don't have the time, to go into all the details on how do I let go of my past? Because I've been cheated on. I've been betrayed and lied to. And I got some scars and some wounding here. I just want people to know that I have a whole process that I do with my clients on how do you let go of the past? There's actually ways to do it. Right now, I just want to sort of convince people to pay attention to this issue, that it really will sabotage you, and so that I'll just say, this is only one of the 7 muscles. So and they're all deep like that. They're all significant things that can stand between us and healthy dynamics, with other people.
Well, yeah, you have to get you figured because that's what it is, right? It's one person growing on their own, another person growing on their own, and then both of them growing together as a pair.
That's exactly right.
In a relationship.
Neale Donald Walsch, he said something like, the purpose of a relationship is not to find someone who completes me, but to find someone with whom I can share my completeness.
Yes,
right?
Absolutely. Yeah, I hate that whole like my other half thing. I'm like, no, I'm my own damn person.
Yeah, if there's one phrase that sort of summarizes my work, it's that Jerry Maguire movie, the You Complete Me mindset, right? Even though I love that movie, and it does have some really conscious stuff in it, but that scene, that phrase, this idea that if I find the right person, they are gonna, they're gonna take care of the 4 F words. They're gonna either fill my void or fix my problem or help me finish my story of being unlovable or unwanted, or help me find an identity, right? Most of us expect a relationship to do something it's not capable of doing. And that is somehow healing us on the inside. And so then we get into these things, we get into these codependent dynamics. You're supposed to, help me not be insecure. So you have to text me every 5 seconds, or you have to love me in a way that fills my void. And we start putting pressure. And this is what I did. This is what people say, what'd you learn in your coaching with your coach, Roy? Well, I learned that I was doing that very thing.
Yeah, I've been guilty of that for sure.
Yeah. I've been looking for the attention and the affection of a woman to make me feel like a man, right? Because I never felt desirable, never felt wanted, right? And so I needed a woman's attention and affection to fix that problem or to fill that void. And so I dated women, and they would regularly say, Roy, however often we have sex or no matter what I do, it's never enough, man. It's never enough for you. And at the time, Rachel, I would argue with that. Oh, bullshit. You know what? It was true. It really was true that I had like a bottomless pit in me. And no matter how much affection and attention a woman gave me, it was never enough. So I put so much pressure on the relationship and on the woman to do for me what I was unwilling to look at myself.
Or unable at that point in your life.
Right. Exactly. And so when I hired a coach, that's what we did. We had to work on me, and for me to fill that void or to discover it's not even there,
right.
to work that. So then I could approach a woman from the sense of, I don't need you, right? I don't need you to fix me or love me. Or I could actually be present with her and recognize I'm already whole. And if we want to share a life together and challenge each other and maybe encourage each other to be the best versions of ourselves, now I was ready to do that. But before that, man, I was just looking for a woman to sort of heal me from all my mommy issues, basically, because my mother didn't give me enough attention and affection, right? And so I was just projecting that in the rest of my life. And
well, it's one of those, right? Either you need a lot of attention, or if it's like the attachment styles, either you need like a lot of attention, affection. If you don't get it, then you're hurting, or you come to believe that you can only depend on yourself and you're hurting.
Yep.
So either way,
all of us seem to come out of our childhoods warped in one of those two ways. We're overly self-sufficient. I don't need anything or anyone, or I am like running on empty. I need a man. I need a woman. I can't be alone. And that was me. Because one of my first book, I've written 3 books. My first book was it was about relationship addiction, because that's what I discovered that I was. I was addicted to women, not sex. I was addicted to love and commitment. Like I could not be alone. Here's a stat for you. From the age of 16 to like 44 or something, I never spent a single day where I was not in a committed relationship. So what that means is when I got divorced, I had already met my upcoming fiance, right? So I had an affair at the very end, right? Because I couldn't be alone. I couldn't just divorce my wife and be courageous and say, this isn't working for me. No, I found some chick on the side, and then it all came out and went through a divorce, right? And then when I broke up with her, I immediately jumped into another one, right? So I was someone who could never be alone. I didn't have any sense of myself. I got it through a woman's eyes and through a woman's body. So that was the work I had to do. But other people have to do the work of kind of opening up to relationship and, they're feeling the fear of being smothered, because chances are their mother or father was all over them, right? That never let them have freedom and control of themselves, and they were smothered. And like, man, I want to grow up, and my individuality and my autonomy is the most important value, right? But for me, I wasn't smothered. I was ignored, right? So I came out of my childhood looking for a damn girlfriend. I needed someone to love me, right? So we all have our shit.
We do. We really do.
We have to decide whether we're going to work on that, or if we're just going to tell ourselves the real problem is I just haven't met the right person yet.
Yeah, I was telling somebody that like I don't believe in the one.
Right. Exactly.
Like
Right.
I think there are lots of different people in the world, but I do think that it's all about finding the one who is compatible enough to grow with you.
Yep. Yep.
Right. So,
On my podcast, the Attracting Lasting Love podcast, I've done episodes on what I call the soulmate syndrome.
mm-hmm.
The one. I completely agree with you. This idea that there's one person out there, right, is just ridiculous. But it
My
comes
person could be in
from
Japan.
exactly.
Like,
It comes from I've got this void or this problem, and I need to find the right partner who's going to love me in just the right ways, and they're going to fix that. So therefore, I got to find the one. I got to find that right partner. And in reality, if I'm in great relationship shape, and I love my wife, I mean, she's an amazing person. She'll say the same thing to you. I mean, I could be in a good relationship with hundreds of women. I mean, right?
mm-hmm.
My wife is wonderful, and she's the one I'm choosing, and I plan on choosing. But it's not because she's like,
She
I
wasn't
don't know how to say
created
it.
by God for
Right,
you.
right,
Yeah.
right. It's if I'm in great shape, then I can make a relationship work with a lot of women as long as we feel some chemistry and we
And
have
there's
some
compatibility,
compatibility. Right,
values.
right.
Yeah.
And my wife could be with a lot of men. She could be happy with a lot of men because she's in shape. So yeah, that word soulmate makes my stomach turn. The one comments because it's playing into that you complete me mindset.
Yep.
And it's just going to cause drama. Yeah.
Well, speaking of like relationship shape, so we are still in the midst of a pandemic. That's still a thing.
Where do
I
you live?
imagine. I mean, I'm just saying that technically
Right. Okay.
it's endemic now, right? So,
Right.
but I imagine so you can be in really good relationship shape and be in a good relationship for a very long time, right?
Mhm.
But sometimes external things happen that affect us as individuals, which can affect our relationships
Oh
in
yeah.
turn. So I imagine that sometimes you can fall out of relationship shape. How do people need to work through that to make sure that they can kind of find some sort of
Yeah.
equilibrium?
Well, let me say this. When I'm saying when you're in relation, like if you're in physical fitness shape, you can definitely fall out of physical fitness shape, right?
Mm-hmm.
When you're in relationship shape, what it means from my perspective is that you're committed to living a certain way in the world. Like you're committed to being in the world in a certain way, and there are commitments or values that guide your life. So for instance, you handle your emotions in a certain way. You feel them and you honor them in yourself and in other people rather than you avoid them
Right.
or medicate them, and you communicate in a certain way when you're relationally fit, right? You are a person who is open and transparent and candid and honest. So you don't fall out of shape there. I mean, you can decide I'm going to go back to playing games and manipulating people and withholding and lying and deceiving. But most people who get in relationship shape and they learn how to handle their emotions better, they become emotionally intelligent. They learn how to communicate from the heart honestly. In other words, they're functioning now in a more evolved way. Okay? That doesn't change. But you can be functioning in a very evolved way, and there can be issues that come up in a relationship where you feel like we should no longer be together. But
Mm-hmm.
when that happens, you're honoring the emotions around that. You're being honest with each other. You're not having an affair behind someone's back because that is keeping a secret. But when you're emotionally healthy, you don't keep secrets. You live out loud. There's transparency.
Mm-hmm.
And so you might have problems, but you're going to work through them with honesty, which might be I don't love you anymore.
Yep.
Or I just feel like for my evolution as a person, I need to move on and do something different.
Yep.
Right?
All very valid things.
Yeah, these things do happen. This idea that you marry someone and, the rest of my life, that sounds nice. But when I married my wife, we did not in our vows say anything about the future. We certainly had the intention, okay, we love each other. We have great chemistry, great compatibility. We think we're going to be together for the rest of our lives, but we didn't make that a vow, because how do I promise how I'm going to feel about her in the future? How can she promise me that? But what we did make vows at, we made vows that we will be honest with each other. We will honor each other's emotions. We will learn to let go of the past in our relationship so we don't keep repeating the same fights over and over again. And we don't keep throwing something up from the past in a partner's face. Well, you did that and I'm throwing it in your face, even though it was 4 years ago. Now I'm going to throw it up in your face again, right? So we said we are committed to being with each other, being governed by these kinds of commitments. But we weren't saying, well, I'm going to love you the rest of my life, because frankly, you can't promise that. Right.
Yeah.
So a lot of people hear that like, well, it's not very romantic. I'm
it's not,
but if that's your definition of romance, then I have a problem with the definition of romance, because to say that I love you and my intention is to be with you, but I'm telling you this, I'm never going to lie to you. And I'm going to honor your feelings and my feelings. And I'm going to function in a certain way with you. In other words, it's like playing a sport. I'm going to play this sport. This is my game. I'm going to play by these rules. This is the way I want to do a relationship with you. And that to me is romantic. And that's promising what you can control rather than promising a feeling which you can't control.
Yeah.
Right. So every day, my wife and I decide to be together. Right. But we've already decided we're going to be honest with each other every day about that, and the way we handle our feelings and our emotions and, all the other stuff. Right. And I think that sets you up for success.
Yeah, no, that's very well said. I just answered like so many of the questions that I had just in like that one fell swoop.
Cut to the chase. Answer them all.
That's incredible. Yeah, no, well, I guess that's kind of discusses like long-term relationships and how you have to show up to them day after day after day.
Mm-hmm.
In terms of dating, and I think I know part of what your answer is going to be on this, mindfully dating. I imagine a lot of that has to do with ourselves, right? As individuals.
Well, yeah. No matter whether you're single and dating or you're in a long-term relationship, you can look at these 7 relationship muscles, and I've just described 2 or 3 of them. And no matter what your relationship status is or what your orientation is or any of that, you can decide, this is how I roll. Like, I want to be a person who reveals rather than conceals. I want to be a person who feels my feelings rather than avoids them. I want to be a person who listens rather than always feels like I'm right. Right? I want to be a person who takes responsibility rather than blaming everybody for my problems. Right? So that's you being in relationship shape, no matter what your relationship status is. So when you're dating, let's just say a person's dating and they're in a place in their life where they're not really interested in a long-term commitment right now. They just want to enjoy people and have a good time and be casual and let sex happen when it happens. But they're not interested in settling down per se, or moving in with someone or getting married or any of that. That's not where they are in this moment. Well, then, if you're committed to candor, if you're committed to revealing rather than concealing, you just tell people that straight up.
Absolutely.
Right? I'm just being honest with you. Now, if you want something different, well, then we're not compatible, right? Because you want to meet someone, fall in love, get married, have kids, the white picket fence, wonderful. I don't want that right now, so we shouldn't date each other.
Yeah,
because we're not compatible. We're not wanting the same thing, right? And a lot of times people are afraid to do that because they feel like, well, if I was honest about where I was in life, nobody would want to be with me. Well,
Yeah, you'd be surprised.
That's
The
that's
first step
exactly, that's right.
being honest with yourself too.
Exactly. It's a ridiculous story. There's a lot of people that don't want to get into some full-blown big time relationship, that they'd love to be casual and playful and sexual and free. It's just where they are. Right. But the bottom line commitment is a person's deciding, this is who I want to be in the world. Right. I don't want to play games. I don't want to do all that stuff. I've done that. I've seen that. I don't like that. Right. So I want to be in relationship shape. I want to be mindful. I want to be conscious. I want to know who I am and what I want and what I stand for and how I roll. And I want people to see it. And those that want to play with me will play with me. Those that don't want to play my game, they won't want to play my game.
Yeah. It's like, it's integrity.
Okay. Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. Yeah. And we all know that over time in our lives, we change in terms of what we want relationally, right?
Yeah.
People can be 50 or 60 and say, I don't want to be married anymore. Oh, okay. Well, I guess let's talk about that. Right?
Yeah.
And you can be that way when you're 20 and then you hit 35. No, I'm ready to, quote, settle down. And now I'm looking for something different, right? If we were honest with each other about where we are and what we're feeling and what we're wanting, oh my God, wouldn't that save so much drama?
Right? And time. Yeah.
Yes, and time and hurt and pain. So all that you and I can do, Rachel, is say, this is what we stand for. And we're living that way, and spread the word and let people do what they do with it.
Yeah. I think that's, I've always been like a really good date. I'm an easy date. I've never had a bad date. And I think I'm just going to toot my own horn. I think that is mostly to do with me. Because I show up to dates and I am unapologetically me, but I also am very ready to be vulnerable and to encourage vulnerability in my date.
Yeah.
And that is appealing to people.
Oh,
So I think that showing up in that way, I guess I didn't even realize it, but that is like my relationship shape, is being able to be able to do that.
Yeah, maybe that's your superpower, the ability to be vulnerable and to bring it out of someone. That is a real gift. And I would say that's not for everybody. There will be some people might meet that they'll be intimidated by that, right? But that just means they're not the person you want to be friends with or to date, make a relationship with, that, right? But I love that. I think the vulnerability is, it's becoming a lost art, if it can be called that.
Yes.
Because the online world is so bizarre and so weird, and everybody plays their cards so close to their chest, so that's a whole topic. I mean, very often.
Well, I was going to ask about online dating and pros and cons, paradox of choice.
Yeah, I mean, I did a whole podcast on how to do online dating. I called it Straight Talk on Internet Dating. But one of the first things I say is you better have a sense of humor, because you are just going to have some bizarre things happen. Just be ready for it. It's not personal. People do weird things. You might meet someone and you feel like there's a genuine connection. You talk on the phone, but you don't know the other person's talking to 5 other people. And then they disappear on you. Like, what happened? Well, it wasn't about you. It's just, so you got to have a sense of humor and understand the nature of the beast. But people have met online. There is a chance to bump into someone via online dating that you might never otherwise get a chance to meet.
Oh, definitely.
Now, what I tell people is just what we just talked about. If you're being online, one of the first things, or early in your profile, have the courage to tell people what you're looking for. So that you don't say, you don't portray that you're open to meet someone, fall in love, get married, but you're not. You're just wanting to get laid and have a good time, right? And so then you meet someone and you create a lot of hurt feelings and a lot of misunderstandings and lots of drama. So before you go online, you ought to really know, okay, what am I really looking for? What kind of relationship do I want? What's my purpose in doing this? And so maybe somewhere early in your profile, you say, listen, this is where I am at this point in my life. I don't want to send any mixed messages. I'm looking to meet someone, eventually have it develop into getting married because I want to have a family. Great. Now, if I'm online and I read that and I don't want any of that, okay,
Swipe left. Yeah.
I
Swipe
don't care how
away.
good looking you are. I'm going the
Yeah.
other direction. Hopefully.
Yeah. Well, I think
People sometimes
that's
ignore that.
why a lot of the fuck boys
Right.
just don't even
Right.
bother to match with me, because I mean,
Yeah.
I'm not that upfront, but
Yeah.
I think that my profile gives off a pretty like
Yeah. Totally.
she's ready.
Yeah.
I think it gives
Exactly.
off that vibe.
It's great. And although your ego might like to get 500 emails, you recognize that the fuck boy, it's not going to go anywhere because I want something very different. So that's the first thing. The second thing I always tell people is kind of once you know kind of what you want, then write a profile. Don't write a profile that will appeal to the masses, right? Write like almost envision the person that you want a little bit
Yeah.
and write your profile with them in mind, right? So make it personal. So if you are looking for a relationship and let's say a woman is attracted to the type of man who, has a strong purpose to his life, he's ambitious, he's got a mission, he's up to something in the world, he's kicking ass and taking names. If that's the kind of man that turns you on, well, then write something about yourself that you believe would be appealing to him. I mean, share the part of like I ask my clients, if you're going to do online dating, first off, what is your gift in intimacy? Like, why should a person, because here's what happens. Okay. This is for men and women. I sometimes, it's for both. But if I'm online or if I'm finding a partner, I already have a pretty busy life, right? You have a busy life. You have things you're doing every day. You have friends, you have career, you're doing stuff, right? When you meet this special guy, what you're basically going to do is you're going to reorganize your entire life and put him right in the middle of it, right? I mean,
They
because
better
he's
be
your
pretty
guy,
special.
right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm going to move things around because you're my guy. So like, if I'm a guy and I see you online, I'm like, well, why would she do that for me? Like, what is it about me that would make her be totally excited to rearrange her entire life and put me right in the middle of it? Like, I must be bringing something to your life that touches you so deeply. You're like, oh my God, I'd do that in a heartbeat because of the way this guy loves me, the way his presence is felt in my body, the way he makes me laugh. Like, so I ask my clients when you're online, why should a person choose you? Do you know what your gift is? Right? And a lot of times people, they can't articulate that. I'm like, if you don't know why a person should choose you, well, you're never going to find a relationship, right?
Yeah, you need to have some self-confidence,
You
higher
need to know,
self-esteem.
right. So if I was working with you, Rachel, I would say that vulnerability, beautiful. Okay. Like, tell me how I would feel your vulnerability. Can you find a way to say it in a sentence or two in your profile?
Oh, I'll read it to you right now.
Which is not easy, right? It's not
No,
easy
I got it.
to do that. Right. Right. So then if I'm a man, I mean, and I am that kind of guy who's trying to kick ass and take names, a woman's vulnerability, sensitivity, that kind of warmth, man, that really appeals to me. Like, even the sound of your voice is very attractive to me. So I can feel that in you, right? And so, yeah. I mean, now, man, I'll rearrange my life to put you in the middle of it. Are you kidding me? Right?
Right.
Because you're offering me what my soul needs and really craves in a sense, even though it's not the you complete me thing, right? There's a human aspect of that feminine vulnerability really feels like good to me, and could be vice versa, right? So So those are some of the things about online dating that if you're going to do it, you need to know, like, put out there what you stand for. And then you should know, why should a person choose me? Like, what is it? So if you were to ask me, I would say my gifts and intimacy, the way my presence is felt, like I can contain my wife. Like her flow will never overflow the banks of my river. Like I can handle her emotions, her flow, and who she is. Like I'm wide enough and deep enough and to be present to handle who she is. So she feels safe and free to just let it rip, to just be who she is. Okay. That and my sense of humor. Okay? I can make her laugh, right? I can sometimes when she's in a mood or in a dark place, I can be playful and fun and maybe even help her shift a little bit by my sense of humor. Those things serve her growth, right? And that's what she would tell you. It's just kind of his presence and his humor are the things that I noticed on our first date. The way he looked at me, the way he listened to me, the way he was all there, right? And then he was funny. He made me laugh, right? And right. So when you know that, well, then find a way to say that in your profile. You know, I would long to be with a woman who would enjoy the strength of my presence. And I might say a word or two about what that means. And a woman who might really be touched by my sense of humor and really find playfulness in our relationship. Right. So right there, what I just described is deeper than almost any profile you're ever going to read online. Because most of them are like, you know, I don't read too many guy profiles, but I've read plenty of female profiles back in the day. And it's like, you know, I like to dance and go to the beach and have a glass of wine. It's like, oh, okay, who doesn't? I get it. Right. But when you're saying something about what I would long to give to a man is the vulnerability of my heart and to help him find the vulnerability of his. Now, if that's the first thing your profile says, holy crap, does that get my attention?
Yeah, like, I mean, a lot of people are going to run, but they're not the right people.
Right. Those are the ones you don't want.
Exactly.
But as a deeper person, which is what you're looking for, a person of some depth, some mindfulness, some character, they're going to be like, I want to meet the woman who wrote that because that jumped off the page. Because everybody else is like, oh, let's dance and go to the beach and have a Mai Tai, right? And right through a man of depth, he's like, come on, I need a woman that's got more than that. I need some substance, you know, of a woman. And so those are some of my encouragements along the online dating thing.
No, that's fantastic. That's wow. And like, we're already almost at an hour. Like time flies. I guess take a couple of minutes and talk to us about where people can find you, what you do, what your different offerings are. Yep. If you have any standout success stories you want to share.
Well, I get invited to weddings all the time. But that's not always the definition of success. Sometimes it's working with a client and helping them become very comfortable with the fact that they might not want a relationship right now, but their mother thinks they should, or all their friends are telling them. So success with a client is more about what the client really wants and what their honest truth is, rather than what the society might say you're supposed to do. But since I describe everything I do in this sort of relationship fitness metaphor, here's what I tell people. If you were going to go to the gym and hire a personal trainer, the first thing any decent trainer is going to do is run you through a bunch of assessments to see what they're dealing with. And once they know your current fitness level, then they can put a program together to get you to go where you want to go, right?
Sure.
This is what I do with my clients. I know most of my clients want that committed, healthy dynamic in a relationship, right? Great sex life. We're compatible. We're creative together, right? That thing. So I know where they want to go. I want to know, like, what is your current fitness level though? Like, what am I dealing with here? Because if I know your current relationship fitness level, then I can put a program together to get you in shape. Make sense? So on my website, is coachingwithroy.com. Hopefully that's memorable. That's why I chose it.
Coachingwithroy.com. Makes sense.
Right on the homepage is something called the Relationship Fitness Self-Assessment Test. So I created this 30 true false question test, taking about 3-4 minutes to take it. Everything's absolutely confidential. Even I don't see your results. I just get notified somebody took the test, right? But you get your results immediately, and it's going to tell you, and of course, it's not the gospel truth. It's my test, right? But I can tell you that it's pretty damn accurate in helping you discover, okay, what is my current fitness level? And I tell people, don't be surprised if the test tells you that you're human, that you need to get in better shape. Because even though I wrote the test a couple of years ago when I wrote it, I took my own test, but I took it from the mindset I had before I met my wife, back when I was working with a coach. And of course, I scored in the worst category. Of course, because I was a fucking mess, right? I mean, if my test said, oh, Roy, you're relationally ripped, like, wrong test. No, my test said I'm dangerously out of shape. And I was. So that's why I tell people, don't be surprised if you don't get glowing results, because most of us need, like physically, most of us need to get in better shape. There's not too many, Arnold Schwarzeneggers walking around the planet. And it's that way. There's not too many Jesuses or Buddhas that are walking around all enlightened and got it all together and that kind of stuff. So the best thing you can do if you like what I'm saying, go to coachingwithroy.com, take that test. And then if your results come back saying you need some work, well, right on the homepage of my website is my phone number, my cell phone number. And call me up and we'll talk about a coaching program to help you get in shape and hopefully change the trajectory of your love life.
Love that.
Perfect.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And you do have a podcast, right?
I do. Yeah. The Attracting Lasting Love podcast that's named after my second book. I've got about, right now at the time we're talking, I think 88 episodes are available. So I've been doing it for a while and,
I'm right behind you.
Yeah. I cover about every topic you can possibly imagine in the relationship dynamic. And, if there's an issue that I haven't touched on yet, let me know because I'll do a podcast on it.
Yeah, for sure. And then can people find you on social media at all?
Yeah, mostly Facebook.
Okay.
I'm not on Instagram. I was on Twitter. I kind of got sick of it. I started being a troll too many times. I didn't like who I was becoming sometimes. So I shut that down.
Takes some self-awareness to be able to get that.
Yeah, man, it's amazing what you can write from behind a computer screen. God,
it's true.
It's
People
like you would never say that to someone's face. They would lay you out.
Oh, yeah. No, absolutely not.
So,
well, I guess any last words of advice then?
Yeah, my advice is break down and get someone to help you with your love life. If it's not me, fine. But if you keep doing all the same things you've been doing, and if you expect different results, then that's the definition of insanity.
Yep.
So what we're looking for is our blind spots, the parts of us that we can't see. I mean, you're looking for how you're unconsciously sabotaging yourself. And if you could see it yourself, you'd fix it. So you need a coach or someone that knows what they're doing to help show you things that you don't know about yourself, to ask you the questions, to help you look behind the curtain, right? It's like the Wizard of Oz is behind the curtain, pulling the knobs and turning the levers and right. So my work is all about self-awareness. And in my view and in my experience, you need someone to help you learn the things about yourself that you're not seeing.
Yep. Yeah. 100%.
Invest in it. It's worth every dime. It's changed my life. So
definitely. Well, thank you so much, Roy, for coming on and chatting with me today. I have a lot to think about now, and I'm definitely going to take that assessment, and I'll probably let you know what I get.
Yeah, let me know. Thank you, Rachel. I enjoyed being with you, and maybe we do it again. Who knows?
Yeah, definitely. Okay. Thank you, everybody, for listening. If you have any questions or feedback for Roy, you can go ahead and send it to me, and I'll pass it on to him. Mm-hmm. And other than that, you've been listening to Wine, Dine, and 69. I am your host, Rachel Dalton, and let's keep talking.